And now, two guys who survived the first Red Dawn movie, Aaron and Jonathan.
Howdy, and welcome to episode 88 of In the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. In this episode, we begin part one of our October Surviving X scenarios. We're your hosts, Aaron
and Jonathan.
And you are in the rabbit hole, safe and sound. For the rest of October, we're going to be doing a fun series of surviving random scenarios. It's going to be a lot of fun. And while this is going to be kind of off-the-cuff fictional scenarios, there's still going to be fun mental exercises to consider. And it's probably something most of you have done on your own or with your friends. And oddly enough, we've gotten a lot of requests for us to do scenarios, surviving different fictional scenarios, and just having fun with it. But before we get started with today's X scenario, we have a quick announcement about the show's future. Don't get too excited, or too worried, I should say. Admittedly, we've been a little off our game for the last couple of weeks. Jonathan and I have both had a tremendous amount going on, both in our personal and professional lives. None of it bad, all of it good. As a matter of fact, Jonathan, you just got back from Denmark.
Yes, I did, and I'm exhausted. My arms are tired.
From
flying.
That's a lot of arm flapping.
It is a lot of arm flapping, yes. But I did just get back from Denmark and was in there last week. I don't even know anymore. I'm totally screwed up on time zones. So I'm good and loopy for those of you out there.
Which is going to be perfect for the show, I think. And I've also been working on a new schedule format for the show, and I think y'all are going to really like it. And it's going to require some more listener participation than we've had in the past. And while we do get a good amount of listener participation, we want you guys to really be more involved because the show is for you, and the more feedback we get on the show and the more show ideas we get, quite frankly, not only does it make it a little easier on us, but it also makes the show more interesting because, you know, we can only come up with so many ideas for so many shows so often, so fast. And the guys that are on the forum that have really started contributing show ideas and stuff, it's all kinds of interesting ideas. You know, it's always easier and better, a much more rich experience to do things when you're not doing them alone, which is in part why we've always talked about community in general. But the forum has become this very tight-knit community, and we've talked about it a bunch of times, and we mention it on the show fairly regularly. And along with all the great categories of discussion that are on there, more and more people really are getting involved in the show idea construction and post-episode discussions, and even the research horde where we post questions of, hey, we're trying to figure this out. Does anybody know anything about it, or can you guys help us do some research on it? And that is going to become a bigger part of the show going forward, especially with participation as far as getting great guests and all kinds of other audience feedback. And one of the other things that we're going to do with it is we're going to structure the schedule a little better than we have in the past. And traditionally, it's usually Jonathan and I throughout the week will throw out ideas back and forth of what are we going to talk about this week, and we'll go to the forum and kind of look around and see what people are talking about and get a real idea of what you guys want to hear about and ideas we think might be interesting, enlightening, or just fun to talk about.
We like the ideas to entertain us.
Exactly. So what we're going to do is we're going to start making the show schedule more around Survival Chi itself so that each episode, and while all episodes really do, but more concrete so that it's a real schedule of, the first week of every month is going to be some episode or interview or some topic around building community or maintaining community and so on and so forth. And we're also going to add in a monthly dedicated episode to the farm updates, which we've been getting a lot of really great feedback about, that people really have been getting a lot of good information, helpful ideas, and helping them solve some of their own issues, even when the information doesn't exactly relate back to the experience they're having with their own urban farming experience. And some people that are actually doing rural, little small rural farms have told us that those shows have really helped them out. So we're going to make that more of the regular schedule rather than the random every 3 to 6 months you hear from Jason and I joking and laughing at at each other trying to do this whole farming thing. So, and with your help, I think we're really going to be able to do a lot with the show going into year 3. I know. Can you believe that? We're getting ready to go into the 3rd year of In the Rabbit Hole Urban Survival Podcast. That's kind of crazy.
That's insane. I don't even know how we got this far along. I mean, it has been such a whirlwind. And when I say I don't know how we got this far along, it's more like has it really been this long?
Yeah.
And it's just a huge amount of time.
Yeah.
And I know you dedicate a lot of time to each and every show, so we appreciate that, Aaron.
Hey, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. And, as long as we keep getting great feedback from everybody and great ideas from everybody, we can keep doing the show. And so, you know what? Enough for that touchy-feely seriousness stuff. Let's get goofy. And today, we are going to go all John Galt style and survive the breakdown of the United States as we know it.
Are we talking like a Red Dawn scenario?
We are not talking about a Red Dawn scenario, although maybe before the end of October we will do a Red Dawn scenario.
Can I use my at-home EMP device?
We will. We're going to let you know when the EMP will be applicable to the scenario.
Oh, man.
But I don't think
I'm going to push that button.
I promise that at some point before the end of October's series of shows, you get to push the EMP button.
Deal.
All right.
I'm going to polish that thing up and get it all ready to go.
Polish whatever you got to, and I think we'll let we'll let Jason McConnell be the one to yell Wolverines at some point so that we can get that Red Dawn in there somewhere.
Exactly. I mean, I'm very disappointed that this is not a Red Dawn scenario, but that's cool. I mean, I can handle it.
Well, you can throw some zingers into the show somewhere. I'm sure we can find a way to work this into the show somewhere today. But and then I think next week, I know Ron Davis is going to join us for that Surviving X scenario and put in his great thoughts and play along with this Surviving X game. And we're going to see if we can get Jason McConnell in here, all 4 of us talking at once. And come up with some really wacky ideas for how we're going to survive whatever it is we're going to try to survive next week. So you and I played this game, and we've played this game like a million times. Usually it becomes a drinking game, or we're already drinking and we start playing the game.
Normally drinking is involved. Today it's just lack of sleep.
Yes, at least on your part. Me, I'm just whacked out of my mind with so much stuff going on at work, but it'll be a nice diversion and a fun survival exercise. So we played this one. We did this one once, and it was basically we came up with the idea that, all right, if there's some kind of socioeconomic breakdown of the United States, or the United States comes to the point, and you can picture this to wherever in the world you are, that whatever nation, for us it's the United States, has gotten to the point where it's no longer bearable to be there. So where do you go? And we've said in a serious show, we said, one of the problems with trying to leave is that there's really, at least for us, in our opinion, there's nowhere better to go. So,
kind of like that whole idea of, what's the least of the evils?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And right now, I think we still are probably the least of the evils.
Yeah, at least today.
Yes. No, not in our scenario.
No, not in the scenario. It's all a wreck, and it's all going down tubes. So, all right, let's start off with, how do we get out of here? We'll come back to where are we even going in a moment. So how do we get out of here?
Yeah, so we've often talked about those little helicopters.
Those little helicopters are cool.
But they just don't have the range.
No, the brand name is Gyrocopter.
Yeah.
And there's a couple brands coming out now. Yeah, they only have a range of about 300 miles, I think.
In other words, make sure you're wearing a life vest because you're probably not going to get to where you need to go.
Yeah. Unless you live close to a border or something.
Right. And then you still might not get to the libertarian utopia we speak of.
Yes, which we'll have to build in just a little while.
Right.
But
probably boat.
Yeah, that was what Jason McConnell and I came up with one time, was that we were going to need a sailboat. Problem with the sailboat, and I don't think, because you see this conversation actually come up quite a bit, but the problem with the sailboat, sailboats really, in general, for most people's purposes, don't hold many people.
Yeah, that's true.
And oddly enough, because I am insane, I did go do, and sailing is something that I would really like. It was something I did a lot as a kid, and it's something I'd like to get back into. It's just as I learned as an adult, going back to do the research on sailboats, and actually being the person to foot the bill for the sailboat, they're damn expensive.
Right.
They are very damn expensive. Now, the 2-person jobbies or whatever, those aren't actually very bad at all. You can pick those up on Craigslist used for pretty much kind of $5,000 to, I mean, obviously you can get into the really expensive stuff. But if you've got a family to move, like you want to start getting into the 4 people or 6 people, at least considering that you may be on a sea journey for a week or more, you're certainly going to want room to store all your crap and room to kind of, I don't know, exist.
Right. Now, to be fair, the boat concept only works if you're in a coastal city.
Yeah, that doesn't work very well if you're in Phoenix.
Right. Now, and I will say, I'm just going to throw this out there because I did look it up, because we've had these conversations many times, as you pointed out. You can actually buy a used, obviously used, diesel-electric Russian submarine for relatively no, I'm not even kidding. That's the crazy part. I kid you not, for a relatively low amount. Like, we're talking under $100,000 for a pretty large-sized diesel-electric submarine. I mean, one that could easily fit 3 or 4 families on it with a lot of food. And so there is always that option.
There is that. Okay, but here's the one thing. In the meantime, we're going to jump backwards for a second. Post-collapse, where the hell do you park a used Russian submarine?
You got to get a boat dock, but I mean...
Well, I mean, you got to get a boat dock, but I'm just thinking, like, most people don't have, like, someplace... I don't know. I mean, that's kind of weird. Do you think a yacht club would let you park it there? I mean, because that's usually where you'd end up parking your sailboat or whatever.
I would hope so. See, I'd basically position it as just eccentric.
Okay. All right. But we're going to need a paint job on this thing because, you know, if we're going to spend that much money on a submarine, it's got to have like red what is the red glittery flame? Well, some flames. It needs some flames. You know what? I have an idea. I have a solution for how we can park this. No, that's not a good idea. I was thinking we could just, you know, get a small sailboat and then you sail to wherever you've parked the submarine. But now we're going to need Ron Davis to actually program some Arduino chips to build us a remote control so that we can remotely surface this submarine. Because when you're not using it, you just want to, you know, put it on the bottom of the ocean somewhere.
That does sound fair. But I'm just saying it is an option.
Okay. I like the option. We can come back. And what book was it? Actually, I think it was Day by Day Armageddon. I don't remember if it was the first book or the second book, but there was a scenario where someone, they may have actually been real Russian sailors that had used it, and they had come up with this small collection of boats, and they were using the diesel engine on the Russian sub to act as the generator for this little floating city in that zombie apocalypse scenario.
Right. No, and I mean, and by the way, it doesn't have to be a Russian sub. There are, and I just decided to quickly look this up very fast, just because. If you look up personal subs on Google, there are a surprisingly large number of companies making more than one-man subs. So obviously, you could buy a one-man sub for, let's see, that one's $2 million. So that's a little out of the price range.
That's a little.
But there are some decent sized submarines for reasonable amounts of money.
Well, the Russian one sounds good. Now, obviously, you're going to either need to put a good submarine mechanic, somebody that can work on big diesel engines and whatever else goes wrong inside a submarine.
True.
So you're going to need
now,
yourself a
although,
crew.
again, it only has to get you to where you're going.
That's true. But, okay, hold off, because we don't want to jump to where we're getting too quickly.
Right.
So the sailboat, to go back to the sailboat real quick, I did some research. Now, when you want to start getting into the sailboat that holds a family comfortably for like a week, maybe 2 weeks, sea journey.
Yeah.
You're looking at around $100,000, maybe 150. And I think at that point, the submarine probably actually does become a better option maybe. The only thing with
the maintenance really is the problem.
The maintenance is the problem, and the fuel is the other problem. Like with the sailboat, as long as you can mend your sails and keep them in good shape, and maybe have a few extra sets of sails on hand, you know, you have a seemingly limitless. I can stop chewing on my tongue. A seemingly limitless way to propel yourself about the planet.
True, although diesel is easy to store.
Yes.
and usually pretty easy to come by throughout the regular times, so that when that moment where collapse occurs, you should be able to have a pretty decent stockpile of diesel.
That's true. That's true. And I think diesel does actually store, or it can be made to store longer than gasoline.
Yes.
And there is a new chemical on the market I heard about, and I just threw this into the show, so I'll have to put it in the show notes. And it was actually on the Survival Podcast, Jack Spirko's show. I don't usually listen to his show because it interferes with the way we make our own show if I listen to his show too much, but I do still actually enjoy listening to him from time to time. Especially if it's a topic that it's like I look at and go, all right, we're probably never going to do a show like that. I will listen to it. And he had a guy on his show that was talking about fuel storage, and whatever chemical it was had like crazy. It was a new chemical and it had like crazy long shelf life. I'll find Jack's episode and put it in our show notes today. But so yeah, you can store, especially now, you can store diesel for a very long period of time. But I would imagine filling up a submarine. Of course, if you're buying a used Russian sub, you're probably not going to worry about the gas bill too much, but that's a lot of fuel.
Well, and just bouncing to reality for just a moment.
Don't do that.
Not for too long, I promise. But in relation to general survival, the same concept. You don't want to store it up all at once necessarily. So you can actually store the fuel for this sub over a pretty decent amount of time.
Yeah. And if you're preparing over a long period of time, yeah, you could do that. I wonder how many.
Yeah, I mean, we're not recommending that you try to get sub ready in 7 days.
If you had the funding, I guess you could. I mean, that goes back to that show we did. I mean, if you had the funding, you could certainly get yourself a sub and all the fuel in 7 days.
Right.
And even the food on board. Finding a crew that you would trust might be a little tricky in 7 days.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's no good insurance there that they won't go mutinous on you.
This is true.
Okay, so which do we pick? Do we pick a submarine or do we pick a sailboat? I'll leave that to you, Jonathan. How are we getting off this piece of dirt?
For sake of simplicity, let's go with a sailboat because I don't know how to drive a sub. So I'm pretty sure that we'd all end up dead.
Well, considering neither one of us has ever sailed a sailboat that big before, that might also be a...
Although both of us have sailed before, so we could probably figure out the size issues.
True. If we just take it slow and steady and make it sort of a pleasure cruise.
Exactly. We're not... At that point, theoretically, we should be off land fast enough that it won't be a major issue of taking our time once we've embarked.
True. Very true. Now, as far as surviving on our seaworthy journey, let's see. What are we going to need to survive on this boat? First of all, fresh water is going to be becoming an issue because, as we've talked about before, like storing water in general requires a lot of room, and we already have a problem on the sailboat with room. So I think from what I've been able to see, a small distillation plant on the boat is going to be required. And that way you can, as long as you have some way of making fire to boil the water, to distill it and remove the water from the salt, or the salt from the water, rather, you've got fresh water. And that at least solves that problem. I don't know what I think the other methods of removing salt from water are actually extremely energy intensive, aren't they? They
are. You could theoretically use sunlight to do it.
Would be very.
But I think
process.
The way you mentioned is probably the best way.
Mm-hmm.
And that way you've stocked the boat with some critical equipment. So the distillery, their distilling equipment makes you a little bit more self-sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be nice. It's kind of like, instead of huge amounts of food stockpiles, although I think both of us would agree, some level of food stockpile would be good on the boat. You probably also want fishing rods.
Yes.
I think that would be a critical thing. Although I do recommend one food that you do stockpile a little bit.
M&Ms?
Like oranges, citrus.
Oh, yeah, you don't want the scurvy.
Yeah, no scurvy. Scurvy's a bad idea.
Yeah. You could probably get away with a good, healthy supply of vitamin C, which is a good thing to stock up on anyway.
True. That's actually a good point. You could stock up on the vitamins, and that might actually be able to be a good thing. Or you could, along with some of your canned goods that you might want for canned vegetables and such, you could just put some canned tangerine slices, things like that, or anything with vitamin C in it would probably be.
That would be good.
Good.
That would be good. Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. I think storing a lot of dried meats and stuff like that. I think if you're going to do this, probably having about, at minimum, 7 days worth of full ration food on hand on the boat, and try to use as little of it as possible. And like you were saying, fish as much as you can. But fishing, deep water fishing, is not a simple task, and it's very physically intensive because those fish aren't small.
Yeah, no, it's very energy intensive. The nice part is when you catch something, you should be able to feed a good number of people on the boat.
Mm-hmm. Sushi.
Exactly.
That's okay. We're gonna need some sushi knives
and rice.
Well, yeah. Let's see. What else are we going to need for our seafaring journey?
Good question. I would say, personally,
satellite internet.
Satellite internet might be useful, assuming the rest of the world is still functioning.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just as critical, some way of defending yourself. Arms.
Yes, because there's pirates in them there waters.
Yes, and I would actually recommend this. It's very few times in my own personal life where I've said, you know what, you should get a 338 Lapua or a 50 cal rifle.
That is such BS. You say that all the time.
No, well, I say I want one.
Oh, that's true.
I have not bought one, and as you know, it takes a huge hurdle in life to prevent me from going out and buying something I really want.
Yes.
And I don't have one of those. So while I see the fun in them, I have yet to actually see the value in owning one.
Yes.
But if you look at this sea journey that we're going to be taking, that's one case where I think a good 338 Lapua or 50 cal rifle would be at least one, if not two, would be very handy.
Well, 2 is 1, 1 is none. So.
Exactly.
Why have one when you can have 2 for twice the price? I would also lean towards
potentially spending the extra money on a nice tax stamp for like a pre-ban MP5 or something like that for any kind of close issues that might arise.
In case the pirates sneak up on you?
Well, you know, you're sleeping, they end up on your boat. Depends on how big our boat is, really.
We're probably going to need a big damn boat.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
It's
a big enough boat. Maybe the MP5 is not the right way to go, but, you know, most of us, and I'm going to guess a lot of the listeners out there have some form of AR or what we'll just call a battle-type rifle, because none of these are real combat rifles, as we all know. But a battle-type rifle, that should be enough for most cases. But I'd say for that long-range deterrent, the 50 cal / 338 is probably the way to go.
I would agree with that. And actually, most people I know, and oddly for some reason I do know a handful of people that have like the big 64-foot Hatterisks and stuff.
Yep.
And all of them pretty much keep a 50 cal on their boat in some shape or form.
Yep. I have also found that to be an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah. And all of them say the same thing. They're like, what? Pirates? And I guess all we ever hear about is Somali pirates, but there are pirates everywhere, I guess. Or, and it's also just shit. Like, any of us really need an excuse to buy a 50 cal or some variant thereof.
And if we really did just see economic and social collapse,
yes,
the concept of pirating may be more of an issue than it was prior to that happening.
Oh shit! I'm thinking we become pirates.
I do have the sticker.
Oh, that's right. Did you get your sticker in the mail?
I did. I love it. It's awesome. They look fantastic. And by the way, for the listeners wondering what the hell we're talking about, Aaron, you were kind enough to send them to me, but we do have the In the Rabbit Hole Horde stickers, and they are fantastic.
Yeah, I mailed out. I think I mailed out about 100 last week, and we did sell out, but I've already ordered more. So by the time this show comes out, don't worry. If you want to go to the site, the button is still there. You can still order some if you'd like, and within the next few days, we should be having a resupply of In the Rabbit Hole Roving Horde stickers for you to put out. And there is a patch that matches it exactly. That will be here in 2 or 3 weeks. That is an In the Rabbit Hole Roving Horde patch that I'm actually super excited about. And hopefully we had some problems in the past with trying to get patches made, but I think we found a company here in the United States that I think is going to do a really good job. But that's definitely needs to be, we need one of those on the boat, so we can identify ourselves.
Are you kidding? I'm going to be flying the jolly In the Rabbit Hole Roving Horde flag.
I see another patch being made out of that.
Yes.
The Jolly Bunny.
Yes, the Jolly Bunny Roving Horde will have its own pirate flag.
Yes.
And I definitely see that as being flying above the ship. I mean, there's no reason in the world that we just have to have some stickers on the side.
Flames, man. Let's go back to putting flames on the side of the boat.
Flames and a crazy flag.
But see now, and this brings up the thing that I was thinking about was that, 2 is 1, 1 is none. And if you're getting these boats and if you have a big enough group, you're going to need several boats. So how big is an armada? Can we have an In the Rabbit Hole roving armada?
That's a question. It's a question for Google. How big is an armada?
It's that kind of show today.
It really is. Apparently, an armada consists of 24 galleons, 4 galleys. Very interesting. In other words, I'm not sure.
All right. Here's the deal.
85 armed merchant vessels.
Okay. So if we just have 85 members of the audience, and we have a lot of members of the audience that are sailors, we can get ourselves.
I'm sorry. That's just a piece of it. It's 85 armed merchant vessels and 34 light vessels, along with 4 galleons, 4 galleys, and 4 galleasses. It's a lot of boats, man. It's a lot of boats.
I think we can make this happen. We have enough listeners. We can make this happen.
Yeah, I agree. And if we can't pull together an armada, then really, I'm ready to cancel the show.
I would agree with that. So, all right. So we've got a sailboat. We figured out the basics of what we need. Unless you can think of something we haven't already thought of.
Well, I think kind of like all survival situations. I think we brought it down to food.
Mm-hmm.
Your boat can act as shelter.
Yeah.
And you've got defense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that really those would be the 3 of the most critical pieces here.
And we have an armada, so we have community covered.
Exactly. And within that armada, we're going to exchange ideas and concepts. So we've got intelligence. And theoretically, we should be able to maintain much better mental health and physical health because we've got the right people in our armada.
Exactly. And at least one of the boats needs to be dedicated to making rum. Because we are pirates now.
Yes, that's for my mental health.
Yeah. Although, you know what? I think that boat is just like the floating bar, maybe. Because
I will be singing the entire time, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum.
Yes.
I'm feeling it. I'm ready for this to happen, actually. I'm going to go out and get my 50 cal tomorrow.
This is actually starting to sound like a pretty good damn idea.
You know what? It sounded like a good idea when we were drinking the first time, too. So.
And we're actually sober today, and it still sounds like a fantastic idea.
I'm in agreement. Then again, I can't say I'm completely, truly sober. I mean, I haven't been drinking, but I'm not awake.
All right. I am awake and have not been drinking.
So, Aaron, I got to ask now. So we're on the boat.
Yes.
Where are we going to?
Okay, that's what I was going to get to. We got to figure that out. All right. So do we go to a deserted island? Or we can find a small island and cohabitate with whatever indigenous people are there.
The natives.
Not like you're talking about.
No. I'm not talking about repopulating yet.
We'll get to that later. Or we can go to another country. Like Honduras has some new buy one, get one free land, just make up your own government thing going on. I don't really know what it's all about. But
awesome.
But I heard about it. A listener sent me something about it. Like, oh, that sounds interesting. I don't think I want to move to Honduras. Houston's humid enough as it is.
So, this is an area where we kind of we didn't get stuck per se, but we did have a hard time figuring out where this utopian land that we would end up in would be.
Well, and the thing that we figured out was there was no spot on the planet that does not suffer from some kind of natural inclement heavy weather.
Right.
And with islands, it's always typhoons of some kind. I mean, that's what
you have your snow gear.
I don't think I'll be bringing my snow gear.
Because that's assuming we end up on a tropical island. It could be an Arctic island. And all right, well, your snow gear might be very handy.
Let's. Okay. Well, there's a question for where are we going to the Antarctic? Are we going to because you and I are kind of closer to. Are we closer to no, we're closer to the Arctic than we are the Antarctic. Yes.
We're above the equator.
Yes. I had to stop and think for a minute.
Yep.
Maybe I have been drinking. I'm not really sure.
I hope so.
Well, you know. Although I did consider, having a few drinks to get ready for the show today, which I usually talk myself out of having a few drinks to get ready.
And to be fair, I do want to remind the audience, because some people may have forgotten and others don't know, Aaron runs one of the largest costume shops around. And when I say costume shops, I'm not really doing it justice. There's internet site, it's got stores, things like that. So this would be your time of year.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever actually touched on what we really do during our day jobs. But yeah, so this is kind of
we hinted, but so this is definitely your busy time of year.
Yeah. It was actually, I had to go around and tell about 5 different people that, hey, I'm going to go record for a little while. If something explodes, just shoot me a text message and I'll VPN into the building and try to check on something or stop the show or whatever to fix it. But yeah, it's kind of a crazy time of the year. And in my other job, we are the other company that I work for, it's mostly really like consulting work. But that company then owns several other companies, and one of the other companies is in the middle of doing this huge product launch, and in the last minute they went, hey, wait a minute, there's nobody heading up the marketing for this, and so I got pulled into doing that. So it's a little extra crazy, because for some reason I don't know how to say no, and it goes back to, I think everything is so damn
because you're
interesting.
A whore.
I am a whore. But I'm an experienced whore, so I have a hard time saying no to things. Because people will say, hey, you want to come do this? And I'm like, that sounds really neat. Yeah. And I never stop to think, you know what? I already have a lot of shit to do. So, okay. But we got to get back to our sailboats. Because now that we're on these sailboats with our 50 cals and our food and our rum ship and our armada, we got to figure out where we're taking this roving party to.
Well, since we've got an armada, which is plenty of people and such, and we've got weapons and food,
yes,
I would say, because again, regionally, we're probably closer to warm islands.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this goes back to preparedness, right? So we should probably, prior to doing all this, we should have prepped an escape route.
Mm-hmm.
So my thoughts would be some local island, something probably not too far off the U.S. coast. Maybe something we can get to that isn't too far from Cuba, even.
Mm-hmm. Maybe something just south of Cuba.
Yeah. Well, that's why we could take over Cuba with enough 50 cals in our armada.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We'll just say somewhere south of Cuba. We'll just kind of.
Yeah.
We'll just go south of Cuba somewhere.
That definitely works.
Oh, you know what? I have an idea. There is a really cool island, and I think Jen and I are actually going to. Jen and I have decided this is our new thing, that once a year we're going to try to take a week and go visit a different country. And as she informed me, I work too much. And she's like, we have to do something as a couple and actually go do things.
I mean, she wants to hang out and stuff?
She apparently actually wants to spend time with me, is what she's telling me. So that's what we've agreed to start doing once a year. Because we've been going to all these weddings, these international weddings. And so that's what we decided.
Just admit it. You're scouting out islands for the plan.
Well, that is how I came up with that idea, actually, was that's what we're going to turn those trips into. But there is a really cool island. She and I haven't checked it out yet. I think that's going to be where we go this coming year, 2013, provided the world doesn't end on December 21st, obviously.
Right.
And it's a small island. It's called Dominica. And the other way I found it was it's the cheapest place to get a second passport / citizenship. And I want to say it was in the neighborhood of about $50,000.
Nice.
Yeah. And for those people going, $50,000 is a lot of money. Not when you consider, like, if you want to go to St. Kitts or something, it's about $500,000. So $50,000 all of a sudden seems reasonable for a dual citizenship.
Yeah.
But it's a very nice island, pretty much a very laid back, not much government involvement. So we could go hang out there, I think. So maybe we're making our trip to Dominica.
Nice.
Not
okay,
the Dominican
I can
Republic,
go with that.
Dominica. It is tropical. There is an indigenous people. I don't remember their language, but
They're peaceful.
They're peaceful. But you know what? We're showing up with 85. What is it? No, more than 85. We're showing up with our own armada. So
a whole armada. It sounds big. So it's a whole armada and a lot of 50 cals.
What if every boat was playing Flight of the Valkyrie while we?
Yeah, that would be good. Or some AC/DC. One or the other.
AC/DC, yes, or maybe Van Halen. Hot for teacher. I
So
don't know how
overall,
that
that
relates.
sounds reasonable. So now we get there,
Yes.
and what do we want to be there? What are we seeking?
Okay, we're seeking life, liberty, and the pursuit of whatever the hell you want to do with the rest of your life.
I like that
I think
plan.
we're those.
That
I
sounds
think
like a
that's what
good
we
plan.
came up with the last time we talked about this.
Yeah, we pretty much defined out the libertarian utopia.
Yes.
So again, when you're planning your armada, our armada will be full of libertarians.
Yes.
50 cal toten, armada loving libertarians.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are, for instance, leaning far left or far right or somewhere else, you may want to consider stocking your armada with people who are like-minded.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We do find that tends to be the best way to stock an armada.
Mm-hmm. From all that armada building experience we have.
Exactly.
All right, so we get there and we take over this poor island, and the last time we had a problem with power generation.
Yes.
And we worked through it, and this may have been the latter part of the evening because I don't remember the solution we came up with. But we talked about biodiesel.
We talked about hydrogen generators.
I think that hydrogen was where we ran
Fuel cells.
Yeah, but because we've got seawater, we can power these hydrogen. But there's apparently hydrogen fuel cell generating power stations aren't easy to build or something.
Yeah, they're tough to build, and transporting would probably be tough too in our sailboat armada.
Can we build them when we get there? Because it could be like Gilligan's Island when we make them out of coconuts or something.
If you could find a way to make them out of coconuts, I am all for it.
If I could find a way to make them out of coconuts, we may have been able to save why we were leaving the U.S. in the first place.
Exactly. I have a feeling that if we can make hydrogen fuel cells out of coconuts, then, first of all, we may not need to leave anywhere because we'll probably rule the world.
I want to make a coconut cannon while we're on this island. Screw potato guns. I want to do it with coconuts.
Well, I think that's fair.
Yes, that's how we're going to defend the island from other
Definitely
armadas.
fair.
Other armadas. Unless they're flying our flag and they just happen to be the left-leaning armada of the rabbit hole somehow, then, they're okay. Well,
if you are the left-leading armada from the rabbit hole and you stop by our island, we are more than happy to offer you a little food, maybe a coconut.
Not at high-velocity coconut, though.
No, a slow-moving coconut.
Handed gently. With a straw in it, maybe an umbrella.
And some of our rum.
Yes. Well, we got to put the locals to work, so we're going to have we got to have a little umbrella factory.
So now we're there. I'm going to make the assumption that at this point we have figured out a way to transport some sort of fuel power generation, or we've decided to go electricity free and really live up the primitive life.
Yes. I was thinking of going pants free, actually.
You do what you need to do on your side of the aisle.
I was going to wear a sarong.
When you visit the rest of us, please put your pants on. It's a request.
I shall honor that request, as it is your liberty not to be offended by the sight of my loins.
Yes, please. But now we've gotten there, we are going to need to utilize a lot of that intelligence that we've gathered and knowledge of how government works and such.
Right, not ours. Right, I mean we're just there for laughs, right?
Yeah, well, of course.
This doesn't involve us thinking.
Across the board.
Yes.
We probably want to figure out really how to position all this and make it work as a functional society.
Yes, and presumably we've got to make it. Well, yeah, and we've got to figure out how to make it so that we can actually trade with other island nations and other armadas that fly other podcast flags.
Yep.
So, and that was an issue that we ran into in discussing, in part why you can't have a true libertarian society because of the forcefulness of other societies these days keeping you from doing such things.
Right, which is why we need to find a relatively deserted island.
Yes.
Or a very primitive inhabitant group.
Mm-hmm. And we bring them coconuts with small umbrellas. And they treat us as, what was it? There was a name for that.
Kings?
No. It was something in like World War II era where guys would, they were like cargo ship gods.
Oh, yeah, airplane gods or what?
Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Okay, so what is our prevailing industry on this libertarian island?
Clearly rum and coconuts. I mean, clearly this is how we're going to trade. We brought our own rum distilleries, and we've got tribes of people picking coconuts. So we could make coconut rum.
Okay. I wonder how big of a thriving industry that would be after because presumably if the United States economies collapsed, all economies have pretty much gone the way of the toilet, the way of the swirling toilet.
You'd think. We probably need to start some farms, too. So using the urban survival skills and the urban farming skills that you've gathered would probably be something we'd want to do on a large mass scale.
We're going to need to bring some bunnies.
That shouldn't be a problem. Sailboats should be able to support that.
You know, and actually, now that I think about it, rabbits, and I think that may have actually been one of the reasons why we went with rabbits, because rabbits are pretty easy to transport. They're small. As long as it's not Jason McConnell and I doing it, they breed rather prolifically. Yeah, chewing on my tongue today. So, and actually, I think a rabbit might be one of the perfect meat animals for an island.
Yeah, I think it would probably work well. We'd probably have to, again, taking a look at the island and understanding what the indigenous animals were like and such.
Maybe. I say rabbits. Hordes of rabbits.
Well, it is our thing.
Yes. So maybe we farm, we raise rabbits, we grow coconuts, we make rum from coconuts. What else do we do there?
That's a good question.
How do we occupy our days?
You know, we won't have the internet or electricity, so most likely sharpening our skills with I'm bringing my bow.
Yes.
So I plan to spend a lot of time in the Zen moment of archery.
I'm going to attempt to make a coconut surfboard.
That's fair.
And maybe spend
I'm
my
going
days
to perfect
fishing. Bow fishing, yes. Although
fishing will be my thing.
Do you really think you could reel in a tuna with your bow, though? Or you're going to have to stay
in an arrow I've got.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to stay towards these shallower waters.
Depends on how big a bow I've got.
And here's the question: how often do we travel to other societies for commerce and trade?
This is all going to depend on just how bad society got, right? So if it got really, really bad, then we'll probably be traveling back less. But if it wasn't so bad and it was just really a U.S. fall, then probably more often. There could be nearby islands, too. Islands tend to form in clusters.
True.
So we could visit local islands and trade with them for our excellent coconut rum and coconut surfboards.
Mm-hmm.
And tuna. That we caught with archery.
Yes. Archery tuna. Sounds like a brand name.
That's going to be how I can it.
Okay, so we have a tuna cannery called Archery Tuna. Jonathan's Archery Tuna.
Yep. Aaron's coconut surfboards.
Yes, my coconut surfboards.
And the island coconut rum.
Yeah, and rabbits.
And rabbits.
Maybe the rabbits eat the husks, or I don't know. We feed them we feed the indigenous people to the rabbits. Although that's not very.
I don't know if they'll agree to that.
Oh wait! No, I forgot the little drink umbrella factory. We need the natives for the drink umbrella factory.
That's true.
All right. We keep the natives. And
by the way, for those of you out there thinking all this is ridiculous, follow the process. Because the process is the same one you'd use no matter what.
Yeah, and that's kind of the gist of it, really. I mean, and I think we started off that show. It's going to be a goofy show, but none of the principles that we're using, other than the coconut cannon or the coconut surfboards, which I don't even think is possible. The cannon is, the surfboard I don't think is actually possible.
Not to get too serious or anything, but this is exactly how books like, if you think about World War Z or Surviving a Zombie Apocalypse or any of that stuff, those books in and of themselves are insanely ridiculous. And, I mean, they're good books. I actually enjoyed World War Z. For those of you that didn't, well, that's fine too. But I enjoyed World War Z. But if you look at the different components of it, it doesn't have to be zombies. It could be any kind of disaster that occurred. Any of these things could really be anything. A book about an EMP causing a collapse of the United States would be the same thing as potentially, very similar to an absolute and utter economic collapse. So when we go through these planning exercises, you got to make it fun or it's going to get real boring really fast.
Well, and not even just boring. I think it just becomes too dark.
Right, too dark, too monotonous, and it's hard to talk about the demise of something like that.
Especially something that you have that is so close to your heart. Whether it's the United States we're talking about, whether it's the UK, whether it's some random bizarre little island, any kind of societal collapse is unpleasant to think about.
Right, but the basic concepts of, okay, what happened? What do I do now and where am I going? Or how am I getting there? What do I need to get there? Where am I going and what's that place look like? And then once I get there, what do I do? Those are the good starting blocks for really any of these conversations.
Mm-hmm. And how big of a sailboat is it going to take?
And how big a sailboat and how big a horde.
Ooh, and how much rum?
Well, the rum is really important all the time.
But
collapse or no collapse. And without a collapse, I'm more of a whiskey guy. But after the collapse, I think I'm going for the rum because I'm going to be a pirate.
Yes. And because I don't think you can make whiskey out of coconuts, can you?
I will find a way.
Okay, well, in that case, we will go in together on coconut whiskey.
Oh, that just sounds disgusting, but I'm there.
I don't know. I like coconut a lot. I might actually be okay with coconut whiskey, although, yeah, that might be kind of gross.
I plan on eating a Mounds bar with a glass of whiskey later just to see how that works out.
Yeah, I think I just got a little sick. Yeah, I think you might be right about that.
You get sick, I'm eating my Mounds and drinking whiskey. It's all the way it works.
And I think the other thing too to remember is like all the primitive skills we would need on this deserted island would be pretty much the same. Sorry for the buzzing. It's actually John Heatherly is calling me right now. But yeah, all the primitive skills are the same. So if you're whether you're any kind of understanding of making cutting instruments, which is what one of the most basic of tools that you're going to need on this island, because those coconuts, they're not going to form themselves into surfboards, and making fire, making rum. Well, you're definitely going to need the fire to make the coconut whiskey. God, that still just does. Yeah. And like you were saying, yeah, the modes of transportation and what is your escape route and how do you get out? And I think the other thing, and this really is, I've wanted to do. We've talked about doing a show for a long time, and I know I've discussed it with many people as one of the probably the most complicated because there's so much emotion involved in it. Is the figuring out of when do you jump? When does it time to get on your Russian submarine or your sailboat and when do you rally up? At what point do you say enough is enough? We're getting the horde together, and we're setting sail.
You know what? That is such a personal question, and is so dependent on the situation. But yeah, that's one I think about regularly.
Yeah, and I don't think that like everything else to me, the commonality is really you always need pretty much the same skills. The same steps are involved. The same basic needs have to be met. But making that decision of when to leave is the most difficult, and not necessarily leaving the country on some crazy ass sailboat with 85 of our closest horde friends, but really figuring out when would be an appropriate time. And there's a very general way of expressing when is the right time to bug out, and it's when your survival odds are better by leaving than they are by staying. But there's a lot of thought and a lot of energy that has to go involved, and the appreciation that there is an emotional impact. No matter how much of a manly man you either are or think you are, I think that still comes into play. You have to appreciate that there is an emotional impact in saying, I'm leaving behind this piece of dirt that I identified as being mine, and perhaps even loved ones.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think people truly understand how big a deal it is.
And that's how the sailboats got so big. Because when I was looking at sailboats, after one night, Jason McConnell and I got so wound up about the topic that I actually did go back and look at sailboats again. And, you start thinking through how many people do I need to take with me? And maybe you've got a wife and kids, or you've got a husband and kids, or maybe it's just you and whatever partner life situation you've got going on. But most likely, it's not just 2 or 4 people we're talking about here. Most likely, we're talking about, well, maybe you're going to take your parents with you, or you're going to try to. And then, and it's also that coming to terms with the understanding that there are people that would get left behind in those situations that just say, no, I'm not leaving, or just for whatever reason, they're not getting on the boat.
Right.
Who knows? So definitely some things to think about. And maybe we'll come up with some definitive answers while we work through these silly scenarios.
I hope so. I think that's kind of the goal of all this, right?
Well, the goal was just to be goofy through the month of October and have some fun.
Yeah. But as
yeah.
part of that goofiness, we kind of take all these shows toward the goofy, right?
Well, we try to. Sometimes we get serious.
That's true. That's true. I try not
crap
to.
out of my microphone.
But you keep pulling me back in.
All right, so I think we have wrapped up our island adventure, and I think next week, what are we going to do next week? Maybe we'll do aliens or I don't know.
Zombies are always a good one, but aliens are great.
Zombies are so big, we may need to save that.
We could actually do a whole show, Aaron, about the uprise of the bunnies, which I've been getting ready for. You've been raising a lot of them, and one of these days they're going to fight back.
We did have that one rabbit that Jason was like, yeah, we're breeding an attack bunny. And I was like, no, that's not good. Don't breed attack bunnies.
He went straight for your head. I'm just saying.
We found out apparently the buck was bothering her a lot. So anyway, but yeah, I think that this I'm still thinking about that stupid rabbit attacking us.
I'm just saying, it could happen, and you've been raising a lot of them.
I have, and if anybody has some brilliant ideas for what the next couple of shows we should come up with crazy survival scenarios for and survive, please put them in the show comments, and we'll use them in the next episode. Or if we do use them in the next episode, we'll certainly give you credit and say who dreamed it up. But for now, I think we've got zombies on the list and we've got aliens on the list. So, and Ron and Jason will both weigh in on that next week, perhaps. So, with that, we wrap up a very goofy episode 88. Thank you for joining us today. In the Rabbit Hole isn't just a podcast and a blog. It's also a community. The best way to connect to that community is by joining me and the other rabbit holers on the In the Rabbit Hole forum at forum.intherabbithole.com. Remember, survival chi starts with community. So come join me at forum.intherabbithole.com and let's talk about all things preparedness. Help us bring you better information about preparedness. If you have an author, blogger, podcaster, video blogger, or any other person you'd like to hear on the show, we'd love to have them on. Contact the person you'd like to hear on the show and tell them about In the Rabbit Hole Urban Survival Podcast. Tell them to visit intherabbithole.com/guest. Don't wait. Do it today, and let's grow the show together. Are you part of the solution? Spread the word about preparedness by reviewing In the Rabbit Hole on iTunes. It doesn't just let us know how we're doing, it also tells others the show is worth listening to. Review us today on iTunes. From the Lone Star State, till next time, stay safe and sound.